So I didn't change what I would normally do in coaching, especially in the second lockdown, because I just thought, no, we need to make sure that everything is on point, because they're aiming for something. So that they've got age group competitions coming up. They've got English schools. They've got under 20s. You know, some of them are aspiring to go to the Olympics. So you can't stop their vision from continuing because of this lockdown.
So normally in the winter training, so that's where we are at the moment, we'd normally, everyone are joining together, we'd pair up, and we do circuits where you just go from one station to another station. Everyone will be using all the same implements with social distance rules and sanitising and everything else, that all had to stop. So I devised a couple of circuits where the athletes just brought their own yoga mat, in effect, to sit on, and got their own medicine balls. And if they had kettlebells, they could bring them as well. So they're actually only using their implement. The club were good enough, if they had any spare medicine balls that we've loaned them out to the athletes. But that becomes their property, so they're not allowed to share. So what I did was, because we didn't know there was going to be another lockdown at that time and we were able to start training again, I devised a program so they just stayed in one area and we did 10, 12 exercises, a lot of body weight exercises. In the circuit, we do a bit of everything. So there's plyometrics, there's press-ups, tricep extensions, just something that you can stay in one area so you don't have to keep moving around. And they were able to go like in a big circle, and we put music on in the middle and people were able to speak. And then when we did what we normally do is do a circuit, they go for a run up and down the field, but they had to stay away from each other, which is obviously very hard when they're trying to talk to each other. Then they had to come and sit back where they were. So they all had cones where they were allowed to put their bags and sit. But the idea being for the circuits and for the medicine ball sessions and for the plyometrics that we do was that if we did go into lockdown, they could take it home with them. By doing that, they had everything there ready. So when we did actually go into lockdown, they knew exactly what they were doing.
For this lockdown in particular, we've been quite lucky in that we're currently going through winter training, which would be strength and conditioning. So the plans have pretty much been able to stay the same. For our strength and conditioning, I'm a big believer in using your own body weight. We wouldn't necessarily bring in weights at this stage anyway. So the core plans I construct for the athletes can all be done at home. During the summer and the peak time when we were doing it, we were actually really lucky with our facilities and we were able to use them. So it didn't impact us. We complied with all the COVID regulations. So we were really, really lucky and we were able to actually get on with it throughout the summer last year. So I'm hoping the same thing will pan out this year as well.
I have different levels of athletes. So my junior ones, so that's from 8 up to 13, I've been doing online, because online is easier. That parents don't have to travel. The ones that are 13 and above, we've done training at the Enfield playing fields, which are massive playing fields. And we had 2 athletes at a time coming to me. And what we did is we did a rotational system. So they would have an area to warm up in for half an hour. Then they'd come to me for the technical input. Then they'd go to a parent for the running on another area of the grass. And then they'd have another station for circuits and then another station for band work. So that was 5 stations and it was just a continuous rotations. And it worked really nicely because it kept within the guidelines and also it enabled them to engage with each other, socially distancing, but also have that person to work with that they could vibe off.
Whereas this time of year, we'd be starting to do a lot more throwing, coming the end of January, February. So that's the bit that we're going to be a little bit behind on. So hopefully, coming the next 4 to 6 weeks, we might be able to get back to some sort of throwing. So it's a case of just keeping the joints moving and keeping flexibility up.
We're not able to do as much cardio probably as we would have normally done. I'm trying to find ways around that, but that is quite difficult based on, not everyone has the same equipment, not everyone has the same amount of space. So I try and come up with plans that are inclusive for everyone. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the track from that perspective. There are elements that you just simply can't put in at the moment. I'm still working on it, but I've not come up with an exact sort of 100% choice, if you like.
At that age, technique is the most important thing. For me, technique, conditioning, making sure that all their the muscles, the ligaments and tendons are strengthened in this time, because you're not going to get this time back again. So we might as well work on the things that we can't work on when we're in a normal session and in a normal scenario.
So a lot of the javelin throwers, most of the javelin throwers have their own javelins and have their own jav balls. So they're able to they've worked out bits that they can do at home, so they can stretch. They can't throw, but they can throw the ball, so they can keep the movement going, the same pattern of movement going. The other throws are a bit harder with your discus and hammer. It isn't as easy, but they can still do bits and mimic the throw.
And I have an 800-metre runner, and what she did, so we would run up this hill. It wasn't too much of a gradient, maybe about a 10% gradient. There's that hill there, and then there's another hill on the end of it, which the gradient was a bit steeper. So what I would do the first hill, so they would do 10 runs or 20 runs up that first hill. And then at the end of that, to have a stimulation of acceleration and speed, 30-metre drive and acceleration up the hill, 3 minutes recovery, up the hill again. It was freezing, it was rainy, cars were coming up and down the road. I'd have to stop cars, like a policewoman or a lollipop lady, whatever you want to call me.
For the winter training, we would normally be doing strength and conditioning exercises. I make sure that it's constructed with no equipment and a small space. We start to move into more technique work and sprint work February, March time, and this is where lockdown can then become problematic. But as long as exercise is allowed, they can go and find a field, a park, somewhere where they're allowed their allowance of exercise and still be able to do the work that I need them to do. Obviously, it's not the same as being on a track in spikes, but it's still working, and actually grass provides that little bit of resistance and makes the muscles work a little bit harder. So it's not a bad thing, really.
What you do on the track, you can transfer in your house. And the kids are inside the whole time. So we'll do a lot more abs, core stuff. And sometimes it's just running, and they do all the drills. Some people have got a long hallway, so they do it in the hallway. Some people have to do it on the spot. But it's been really, really good. It's worked really well. And some of them have bought their mini trumpets. The mini trumpet isn't that expensive. It's going to be beneficial in the long term because you can still use that. Once we come out of lockdown and we're back to normality, you still can use that as a tool when you're at home.
We do circuits, so it's a circuit for everyone. It's not a circuit for a thrower. It's not a circuit for a sprinter, but it's a circuit for an athlete. And same with a medicine ball, the plyometrics. It's something that your jumpers will do, but also your sprinters will do, and so do your throwers. People always think, throwers don't do all that. Well, they do actually, and that's what people sometimes don't realise. And they come to train and think, I thought throwing would be easy. And actually, it can be easy, but you've got to do everything else first.
What I think we have to do is, as coaches, we've got to keep them motivated. So you say to them, at some stage this year, you're going to run. Now, I don't know what stage that is. It doesn't change for me. I'm still aiming for May. Now, if I get races then, fabulous. If I don't, then I'll just give them time trials. So come down as if you're going to a race, warm up like you would normally warm up for a competition. I'll be around, so that they've got something. So it's never a waste of time.
Normally, by now, we would have set goals as in, right, we want you to go to the county championships. We want you to qualify for the England championships or the English schools. We want you to finish in the top 12. Whereas, I'll be honest, I haven't done any of that with the athletes this year, because to me, it's about getting back, enjoying it, and then we can look at what there is around the corner.
So we have a long-term goal of being competition ready, because I'm a coach, but I'm also a team manager. We were lucky enough in the last lockdown to be able to put on a few competitions that were just kind of very localised. For the pole vault, it was just our club, and we were able to put that on to still give them an idea of how competition feels. And even if leagues don't go ahead, we would still be able to put on club competitions. So keeping that at the top of our list helped the athletes keep going, because that ultimately, I think, is what athletes want to do. So that's quite a helpful goal to set. Because I'm a team manager, I know that the leagues are working in the background, put on a competition as soon as the government say it can be done. So to sort of say to an athlete, you might only get a month and then you might have to be competition ready. So we need to be building towards that now. So we've got our main goal, which is being competition ready at the drop of a hat. And then we've got our mini goals, which is strength and conditioning. It will be being able to complete sets of reps of the same exercise for some. It might be to get the technique correct for some. So there's individual little goals that I add in.
Last year, the competitions were able to go ahead really well under COVID secure rules. And I think if they can do that again, as long as everyone's health and safety is first, I mean, I know we're talking about the athletes, but more than anything, I think it's the officials, because they're the ones that the majority of them are over the age of like 50 or 60, because they love the sport. That's why they do it. They're so passionate. They're the unsung heroes that we never shout about enough. But I think if it goes ahead, as long as everything's done right, which I think it can be done, no reason why we'll have a season at all, which I think that's what the athletes need to hear as well.
The coach in me always tries to get the athlete to focus on managing to accomplish a personal best rather than where they position within a competition. So I just ask them to better themselves. If they can better themselves, they can't have done any more.
What this is teaching you is to have your goals, but know that your goals can change at any moment. Just even if we were normal, you might get a niggle that prevents you from doing that particular race. There might be a storm and you might not want to go to that race. You may get a bug or something may happen. Yeah. So we already dealt with these kind of issues already. We're teaching the kids to be adaptable. You know, your goals don't change because the situation has changed. You still have to have your goals. And we have to keep on giving them goals, because if they have nothing to aim towards, then they're not going to do anything. And we still have to make them aspirational.
So obviously mental health, I think, has taken a bit of a dip, for some more than others. You can put a price, I think, on face-to-face contact with people. Being in that training group, it's a really supportive group as well. Being able to see each other and train is so important. I think drawing the link between exercise and positive mental health is really helpful. So getting them to keep up with their training and do that exercise, that's obviously going to have a benefit on their mental health anyway.
I think some of them are struggling, if I'm truthful, with the lack of engagement with other people of their age. So I said, aren't you seeing anybody? Are you not going to the park and like walking with them or anything? No, they're not doing anything. I think some of them are liking it because they're solitary people and they like to be on their own. But even those solitary people are starting to think, hold on, this is enough now. Enough is enough.
Yeah, I think some of the athletes are doing really well. Some are managing, some are just carrying on as normal. Nothing's changed with it. And then some are struggling. And I think a lot of it is not just because they can't train, but a lot of it's just because they're missing that social interaction. And it's just trying to keep them engaged so they know that they're not on their own. At
the beginning, at the end, I would talk to them and say, how are you? You know, how's school going? How are you treating your parents? Are your parents getting your nerves? You know, are you going online properly? And just talking to them. So at the end of every session, I talk to them. So they sit and I'll say, you know, thank you for coming. You know, I hope you enjoyed the session. And I'll say something to the parents as well, just so that they know that I'm interested in them. So it's not just about the coaching. The coaching is important, but it's actually interacting and engaging with them so they can see me, which I think is key. But
it's a failure in the sense that you don't know how they're responding. You can't see them. So when you talk to someone in person and they set up, and you can normally read the face and understand why they're being like they are. But over text, or anyone can say, oh yeah, I'm fine, everything's going really well. But until it comes down to it, you'll never find out.
In the previous lockdown, I drew on a couple of sort of psychology reports, sports psychology reports that I was able to find, just to help athletes understand the importance of the mental health versus the physical health, and how both, you know, really go hand in hand, and you can't have one without the other.
If we carry on being negative, because the news is very negative, isn't it? 1,000 people have died today, and that is sad. And I'm not negating that that's not sad. But we also have to live our lives. You know, when Sir Captain Tom died, you know, I felt really sad. But I thought, what kind of a spirit would he want us to be living in? He wasn't being miserable. He wasn't sitting there and saying, woe is me, I'm 100 and I shouldn't be walking, you know, 100 lengths of my garden. He just said, you know what, I'm going to do this for charity. And It's all about mindset. It is, because even this week, you know, I wake up and I feel a bit low, but the moment I get the endorphins kicking in from the workout and I say, right, I'm going to do something positive today, then it becomes positive. And I feel that it's for me as a coach, not to, even if I feel rubbish, sometimes I go on the Zoom and I feel rubbish. You know, I don't feel like doing it. I definitely don't want to stand out in the rain. These children have made an effort to come and see me and they value what I'm doing. So the least I can do is be positive. The least I can do is make it fun for them. That's the minimum. And for me to be positive when I'm around them is important because it lifts their spirits.
We do have a good spectrum of different athletes. So some respond to challenges, some respond to the video conferencing or the online meetings that we're doing, whereas some don't like that so much. Some prefer to have just individual plans that they can beaver away at in their own time and in their own home.
I think it just gets a bit, for them, it's a bit tedious because it's just like ongoing. You can't see the end results yet because you can't go out there and actually throw or jump, because obviously I've got some combined eventers as well. It is hard for them, and I'm fully aware of that. And as much as you want to try and help them, you've got to just keep nurturing them and trying to talk to them as well. When they come to the track, you can give them that enthusiasm. Messaging and ringing the athletes, it doesn't always work as much as you try. And they say, yeah, I'm motivated, I'm going to go and do it. And they might do it for a day or two. And then it's like, well, then how do they do the next day or the next day? And you can't be at them all the time because you don't want to push them either. You don't want to be that nagging, like a nagging parent, really.
Because I got grassroots right the way through to elite, I have to look after my young ones because they're as important as my elite. And I had to think outside the box. I had to make sure that I was catering for all of them as well as my elite athletes. My elite athletes leave Valley, they can run on the track, but my young ones can't. So do I just not bother with them? Do I just set them a program and leave them? Or do I, as a coach, make sure that they are engaged with the process and we don't lose more athletes because of this coronavirus?
Just sort of responding to different challenges and trying to set them mini competitions within the group, that kind of thing. What I've done is added to that with the virtual online meetings, particularly for those athletes that I think struggle to motivate themselves. Obviously, when you're traveling to a track for a training session, the motivation is there, but I think at the moment quite a few of them are struggling, so we've moved on to virtual meetings and using that for particularly shy athletes. They can turn the camera off, I can still hear them and they can still give me feedback. Obviously, if the video's on, then I'm still able to look at their technique and still tweak it if need be. So at the moment, touch wood, it's working.
So how can you, as a coach, negate the negativity that can be caused from being locked down? How can you make the best of the situation? Because I do videos and I say, I'm at Enfield and I'm in the rain and look at the weather and look at the athletes. Are you enjoying this? I just make it fun, because if you go there bleating on about how it worries you and you've got to stand out in the rain and you've got to stand out in the cold, you know, it's not going to help the athletes. It's not going to help you, and it's not going to move the situation forward. We are in this situation.
They're doing great with the webinars that I've seen on England Athletics to engage coaches, but also to engage the athletes. It's things like that that people need, because it's like, well, that gives you a reason to go and train, but it's trying to hit that right age bracket as well. So your teenagers are the hardest ones to get them to do different events or go on webinars. They're like, well, I'd rather go on my Xbox than go and watch a webinar for an hour.
What kids want to be is valued. Now, at the moment, they don't feel valued. They feel like they're disposable. They're just going to be sat at home on the computer all day doing no physical activity. So what are you going to do? You're just going to let them, you know, fall by the wayside. And track and field is hard enough. It's a hard enough sport as it is, without us not putting any effort into keeping those athletes in our sport. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing it, because I want to keep athletes in my sport. I love the sport. It's a great sport to be involved in. You travel around the country, you meet people that you've never met before.
For me, I found that I think as long as athletes understand why they're doing what you're asking them to do, they'll respond to you. It's when athletes don't understand that they'll probably not do it. So make it easy, make it fun, make it understandable, and athletes will respond. During the first lockdown, I made a compilation video of all their achievements. And I was able to put onto it just sort of some motivating words, and that was put on our club YouTube channel for them to see, just to say, you know, I'm thinking of you, you can do it, keep going, really proud of you. And I'd like to think that helped, maybe cheered them up a little bit.
Doing physical activity, I think, gets the endorphins going, makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel like, okay, it's not so bad.
Me personally, I'm fine. I mean, I'm working as normal. I'm still coaching as normal with regards to Scott, because Scott's classed as an elite athlete. So that's keeping me engaged coaching-wise. But I'll be honest, I miss the squad. I miss having the laugh, and even though sometimes there's problems or there might be little arguments going on, but you just miss that interaction with the kids, really. And
I'm doing this course, which has been really, really good, the work shadowing. So I've been able to engage with other people on that. I am on the phone a lot. I'm Teams, I'm on Zoom. I've got church friends. So I'm a Christian, so I on church every Sunday. Then they have some other groups. And it's just not just talking about godly things. We're just talking about everything, just life. You know, it's not about us per se. It's about how can we help other people, but how can we support each other as well? It's about support. I mean, I'm a social being, and I have to be around people, and I like to be around people. I can be in my own space, but when I'm forced to do it and I can't go out the house, I found that quite difficult. I'm not going to lie, I found it quite difficult. And even though I've been trying to do things, and I've been on the course, and I've been doing other things, I've been studying, it's still been quite challenging. I've got a lot of coach friends who I talk to or I text, and you know, Chris Starr phoned me yesterday, how are you? Are you okay? So we look after each other, and we make sure that we check in on each other.
But I think you just got to stay positive and look ahead. Keep looking for these dates, saying, right, when can we get back on the track? When can we meet up and do what we were doing?
I'm okay, I think. I really miss coaching. Absolutely love it. It's like my therapy. At the end of the day, I get to go to the track, and I love being with the group. They're a lovely group to coach. And I think my favourite bit is witnessing all the little milestones that they reach, whether it's doing their first technically correct push-up to clearing their first bar height. So not to be able to go to the track is awful, but by setting the challenges that I'm doing and knowing that they're doing them, knowing that they're responding to it, and hearing that they want to get back to the track, you know, so they're not sort of drifting away, that is great, and it keeps me going as much as it does them, I think.
Obviously, a lot of people now use YouTube for drills. They can find various drills on different systems. It's normally WhatsApp video, and then I use a thing called Coach's Eye. Then I can send screenshots back with explaining why I think, and you can do it with either a voice message or you can do it with words. You can actually share it with people. So you can have a coach in the UK and a coach in America, and you can share your videos. A video of, say, who you want them to throw like, and their video, and actually do it side by side. So you can show the differences of what positions they might be better getting into a certain position. So I don't mean for them to copy that athlete, but this athlete does this in the middle of the circle, or this athlete gets into a real good release position. So you can just show them against, this is what you're doing, this is a position that would be better for you.
For me personally, WhatsApp is easier, but because I've got such a wide age range, some of the younger ones aren't on WhatsApp. So then we introduced Facebook, but I use Facebook for the team managing side of things as well. So for me, Facebook wasn't too much of an issue either. And obviously during lockdown, we're starting with the virtual meetings. Obviously for the younger athletes, I've got their parents in instead. Or if the child's in and they're underage, then I've got the parent as well.
I use WhatsApp a lot. So I put all the programs on WhatsApp. I'm able to deliver it on Microsoft Teams. So I don't have to, I'm not limited by time. Yeah. So I can do whatever I want to, however long I want to. At Enfield, there's these fences, and it's basically about 386 metres round. So I could do all my sessions. So the first length is 100, then 200, then 300, then 400. So I was very fortunate. However, when it was muddy and rainy, we ran in car parks. we ran on the path. I would just adapt the training in accordance with what we could do.
At the moment, I'm using a plan that's inclusive for everyone. So no equipment is needed really, and a space no bigger than kind of a living room sized rug is needed. So in theory, most people would have that, I would think, somewhere in their house. For the athletes that perhaps are slightly stronger, or for the really young ones that I've got, I get around that just by changing reps and sets.
So at the beginning of our training session, we do some mat running. Did a lot of this with Christina Hugu. So I know that it works and I know that it conditions. I said to them, in the summer, who's got a trampoline? So if you've got a trampoline or a mini trampoline, fine. What I would do is I'd warm them up just like normal, do a bit of conditioning at the beginning sometimes. And we would do all the drills that we would normally do at the track, but we would do it on the spot, or we'd only move forwards a little bit. And we would do the running either on the trampoline or on the mini trampoline, as I said, and some of them just had to do it on the grass. And you're looking at the cyclic motion, you're looking at feet coming above knees. That's all I used to say, feet above knees, posture must be erect. All the same cues that I would use at the track, it's not changing. We'd go to doing 10 seconds or 5-second runs just for speed, but thinking about posture, thinking about dorsiflex, thinking about not plantar flexing, because some of them would plantar flex when they're on the tramplex, because that's what you do in trampoline. So you come off it and you toe, you know. So just teach them some of the rules, but also in doing that running on the trampoline, you're strengthening their hips, you're strengthening their knees, you're strengthening their hamstrings, the gastrocnemius, the quadriceps. You're covering things that you would not probably cover when you're running on the track. So I was trying to kill many birds with one stone.
I know that they all have a water bottle because they all bring it to the track. So just filling up that can be a weight if needed. Kind of every Christmas, I always get them a little gift and I always make sure it's the same so that I know that they've got the same equipment. And I guess preempting lockdown this year, I got them all a strength band, and it all came with a plan. So I know that they can all do the same exercises with their resistance bands.
Yeah, it's just a case of finding out what athletes have actually got at home. A lot of them have got their own TheraBands, and a lot of them have their own dumbbells, like just lightweight dumbbells. And like all the squad now that I coach are looking if they've got their own med ball and they've got a mat. But it's just most houses, unless you live in a bungalow, have got stairs. Most people have chairs or a table, so you can sit on the table and do a different leg exercise. And then on the stairs, it's great for you doing your bounds, your hops, and sprinting up the stairs. But obviously being careful at the same time, because the last thing you want to do is slip on a carpet.
You don't need to have proper hand weights. You can use the cans of beans and we can do the arm drills. We can do the weights up. It's not a problem. We don't have to have that equipment. Skipping, just turn your arms like you're normally skipping and just keep your arms going. If you can't afford a skipping rope, that's fine. We can still do this without the skipping rope. It's fine. So just making sure that people didn't feel like they had to have all this equipment. I'll tell you one thing that I did, it's quite funny. You've got a chair. What do we do on chairs? We sit on chairs, don't we? I'm going to show you something because it is the best thing. So do you know we do trail leg drills? So hands up above your head, and we did these drills, okay? Another drill that we did was we do high knees over hurdles, high knees over hurdles, high knees over hurdles, okay? Another one we did straight legs, straight legs, straight legs, straight legs, straight legs, straight legs, okay? There's another one that you put your feet on and you're just working on pushing up, through, pushing up, through. So it's just been thinking outside the box and being more adaptable. If
you've got a wall, access to a wall, you can do medicine ball throwing against the wall, jav ball throwing. You can throw balls like a discus into the wall, do hammer turns using your medicine ball, or if they've got a kettlebell. I saw one girl, she was struggling to squat, so she used 2 wheelie bins and put the bar on the wheelie bins. So she could use that as a platform for her to lift off. Another girl didn't have a bar, but she had some plastic and put like paint pots on each end.
Technique work for pole vault, obviously that's quite difficult. They would each need a pole. So we have to break it right down, and perhaps some of them I've had using a broomstick, like that can work for some very, very basic drills.
It was really interesting to see the reaction when they first saw me. I remember the first time we did it, when we could do training, but we couldn't go to the track. And the joy just the sheer joy on their faces when they came down and did the session was unbelievable. And that made me realise that this is quite important, that I don't just go into the background and ignore them.
I think being way back on what they were doing last year, I think that could be quite the opposite, because during this time the body is actually probably rested more than what it would normally. So normally we would throw 2-3 times a week, whereas at the moment they're not. So there's no niggles, no injuries. And I think it's just a case of, instead of when they do come back, going like hell for leather to try and throw far or jump far, it's a case of nurturing them back into it. But at the same respect, what could be good as well as some of the bad habits could have gone.
I would not be doing this in a normal year, but this is going to come into my programme now. I've decided that more hill runs at the beginning of our plan, because it's been such a unique experience for them, but it's also been an experience that has benefited them. So when they've come on the track, I've seen a difference in their accelerations, I've seen a difference in them using their arms, I've seen the difference in their posture, because they had to have good posture running up the hills. And some of them technically weren't as sound on the track. But when I put them on the slight incline, their execution of like high knees, recovery runs, all those kind of drills that you use when you're teaching sprinting, so much more consistent. And even when we went back onto the track, it stayed the same.
Just keep at it. Nothing worth having is easy. And when we come out of this, you'll be so much more mentally stronger for it, which is something you desperately need in pole vault anyway, so it can only benefit you.
It may not be great this year, but do you know what? It's teaching you resilience, it's teaching you commitment, it's teaching you communication with your coach, it's teaching you focus, it's teaching you vision. It was making them understand and appreciate what they've got. Some people don't have these nice facilities that we have, and they manage, and they're world class. So there's many lessons that you can learn from this and make them appreciative of what they've got, the equipment that they have. This time I set them a program. So I do one session with them, but like they've got circuit sessions to do, they've got some band sessions to do, they've got some general conditioning sessions. Before
this lockdown, because of the social distance when we were allowed to train in the smaller numbers, I put a plan together. So when we did like the medicine ball session or core session, they were always on their own, whereas normally we'd pair up. So this time it was a case of, right, get your own medicine ball, get a mat. If we do go into another lockdown, that program can then be developed so you can do it at home. In the same way, when we did a circuit, normally you go around a circuit in like a big circle. But what we did was we were able to develop it so that it could be modified so they could then do it at home as well. And I told them, all the athletes when we started back last time before it went on lockdown, that the idea is we're going to do this circuit, we get WhatsApp, emailed, and then if we do have to go into a lockdown, you can carry on doing it.
That first time that they vault back on that bed is just so worth looking forward to. It's what they all tell me they can't wait to do. Can't wait to vault back on the bed. Can't wait to get back on there. Yeah. Let that thought keep you going, I guess.
So I'm just trying to work out, right, we're going to have 5 years of this. So let's just, because to me, it's about 5 years. So in my head, I know that. So I'm not thinking it's going to be over. If you change your mindset and you change the way you're looking at it, it's going to go on for a couple of years. Let's be honest. It's not finishing this year. And even if we have the Olympics and whatever, it's still not going to be over. We're still going to have to be careful.
There's no right or wrong answer. Some people say, well, I might do it this way, you're doing it that way. And all I can say is whatever you're doing is right. There can't be a wrong way of doing it, especially not how things have been with the pandemic, really.
I'd probably say keep going. To say a cliche sentence, every little bit helps. Any little thing that they're doing is more helpful than not doing anything at all.
This is the one thing I keep on saying to myself, it's only for a moment in time. So we will get through this. When we're going to get through it, I don't know, but we will get through it.